Welcome to Azure Saturday. I had to use these slides. These are not mine. I love that. Like, how many drop shadows do you want? All of them. So I'm Chris. I work for Microsoft in Redmond, but I live in Berlin. And I'm basically here to introduce you to the day a bit and talk to you about what the ideas of artificial intelligence are and how much we actually have to think about the ethics of artificial intelligence. It's not that much of a technical session because there's going to be more deep dive technical sessions later. I just wanted to get you a bit acquainted with the ideas of how we approach artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning in Microsoft. It's not necessarily Microsoft, it's more or less me, and then Microsoft is okay with it. So hopefully we will see afterwards if I still have a job. So I want to talk about building human interfaces with AI. And all the resources that I'm covering here are actually at that URL, so you don't need to write them down. You can just go through that one, and then I keep listing things that I can find, that I find interesting on the internet, and point out why they are an interesting thing for you to use. So let's talk about artificial intelligence. It's kind of a weird thing because everybody talks about artificial intelligence. Nowadays you go to any pub in the Silicon Valley and just mutter Bitcoin and artificial intelligence. Somebody gives you money. You know, like they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Those guys are on the forefront. And there's always this confusion. What's the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence? And there's a very, very simple test that you can do. If machine learning means it's written in Python, JavaScript, or Java, or some other languages. Artificial intelligence means it's written in PowerPoint. Because there is no such thing as artificial intelligence already. It's an idea that we had for a long, long time, and we just dream of these things, of having thinking machines that solve all the problems for themselves. So when you go look into the history of artificial intelligence, it's nothing new. It goes back to the 50s. There's a great book called Machines of Loving Grace. If you wanna get that one, that's something that's a great history of all the artificial intelligence research and what was going on. It's out of print, I think, but you can still get it on Amazon in like second-hand books or something like that, or look for a PDF online. It's also quite the hype and often misattributed when I see people like, oh, we're using AI, and in essence they just use some clever SQL statements. The interface is the same, the outcome is the same, but it sells better if we say we're using AI. And it's an umbrella term for math and pattern recognition and repetition to a degree. And it's got a huge boost because of the availability of hardware. Back in the days when we thought about like machines doing deep learning, machine learning was impossible to think about. But nowadays you can do it on our mobile phones. We can actually use it on our machines. This is a laptop with a quad-core i9 and 32 gig of RAM. I didn't have servers like that back in the day, and that seems to be a thing that's becoming bigger and bigger every year. And it also became more feasible because of the availability of lots of data. We collected a lot of data from people over the years. And we also accumulate thousands and thousands of kilobytes every second with our mobile phones, with our self-driving cars, or with any of our cars, really. Like, we put a lot of data out there, and in essence, we need the machines to help us to make sense of that data because it's too much data for a human to consume. And it reminds me of this genie in the bottle story, where basically we have this massive new power, but we don't know how to control it. It seems like AI, or like these Siris and these Cortanas and Google Nows or whatever you call them, they fulfill our wishes seemingly with invisible magic. They know what we want before we want it. But I'm not that happy about it. I don't like the whole idea of Alexa telling me one result. That's like hitting I feel lucky on Google all the time and hoping it's the right result. Who chooses that result? Is it really intelligence, or is it the person that pays the most to be that result from it? And the whole concept of like Alexas and like Google Homes and other and Cortana services that we have soon as well, these machines that we put in our house, just creep me out to a degree. If 10 years ago I would have told you, like, can I put a microphone in your house that records everything that goes to a random server in California? You'd be like, no. What if it tells you the weather? Okay, fine. You know, we're giving this data away without realizing it. It's useful, but it feels too good to be true as well. I just don't trust these things because I know computers failing, and I know computers are doing wrong things. And also, once released, it may have a dark, sinister edge to it. You don't know where your data goes. Like when people always say, I've got nothing to hide, fine if people spy on my stuff. Yeah, but then you have some algorithm that's mal-attributed to you and brings up a story or brings you in connection with another story that you haven't done. And you have to defend yourself against that information. So the lack of information in these clever connections is the dangerous bit, not what people know of you. And it's hard to put it back into the bottle. It's like, it's done. Your data is out there. Hiding something that you put on the internet or that you spoke in front of your smart TV is almost impossible, and you cannot take things back. So as I like to be pretentious, let's start with some predictions what AI and artificial intelligence, where this whole thing is going. AI is the #1 growth market in IT. The others two are cloud and security. I've been a web developer for 20 years, and I've been a lover of the web, and I love JavaScript, and I love all the open source stuff, and it's all cool. But if you want to see like the growth right now, the big things that are happening, it's these 3 things. The other ones are basically plumbing. We have these things. We don't want to think about them anymore. Machine learning is already replacing thousands of jobs, and they're boring, terrible jobs humans should not do. And I look forward to that. I don't want to have a call center where people sit all day and answer stupid questions and don't even have a chance to answer them properly. They have to just go through a decision tree. And a machine is better at doing that. And it's also happening in IT. We are not invincible because we know how to exit Vim. Computers and programs will write programs in the nearer future as well. And I have even some demos, I think, that I put in there yesterday night. There's no stopping this. It's just too convenient. We cannot say anymore like, oh, we should stop talking to Alexa. We should stop putting things on Facebook. It's over. These things are out there. The baby is out of the bathwater. Now it's time to take control over it again, or at least get some insights. The amount of data we create demands machines to sift through them for us. We're not possible for us as humans to consume this information anymore. I love that every photo tool that I have right now has machine learning in it and indexes these photos in the background. So I can enter dog and I find all the pictures of dogs in the thousands of pictures that I have taken, rather than me having to tag everything with dog or describe everything with dog. And if we as developers and decision makers in IT don't take ownership and lead with the good and ethical examples, we throw away decades of work democratizing computing. Open source, freeing software, Creative Commons, sharing information with others. This is the only way how IT grew so fast that it did so far. And now with a lot of like machine learning, we're like, this is our algorithm, we're not sharing that with other people. We're like, that is our unique identifier in the market. And that scares me because that means you're hiding something as well. So in essence, we're actually under constant scrutiny by machines. Machines are watching us wherever we go. So be afraid and don't sleep tonight. No, I will get back later. That there's a happy part to that as well. But it can get quite dystopian and quite like you would not even authors or filmmakers thinking of it. You probably have heard about the social credit system in China, where basically you have a credit score, and whatever you do something unsatisfactory to the government or illegal, you get some points taken away from you. And then you're actually not allowed to leave the country anymore. Then you're not allowed to go to another city anymore. This is like an episode of Black Mirror, but this is actually being built right now, and it's going to be rolled out in 2020. And there's like thousands and thousands of cameras everywhere. And there's already some interesting stories, but there's one lady, for example, jaywalking, you know, when you cross the road without going over the lights, but just cross the road where you shouldn't be. I know it's impossible to think about in Germany, but like other countries do that. And that's one of the crimes. So you get like 2 points taken away from you. And there was this lady in China that basically had all her points gone in one day because she got caught 600 times for jaywalking or something crossing the road. Turns out she's a model, and her picture was on the side of a bus. So every time the bus crossed one of those cameras, it looked like she was crossing the road illegally. So that's the kind of things we have to consider. So Big Brother is kind of redundant. We didn't actually have to invent the government spying on us, because we all buy these things and are happy to put them in our houses and spy on us. It's incredible if you think about it. The marketing is wonderful. Everything we do online is monitored and recorded, no matter what you do. Okay, we can do your Tor servers and your Brave browser and everything, but somewhere, someone will be listening on what you're doing. And we often don't realize that our data is how we pay for free services. I'm getting tired of free. I'm like, oh, this is free, and yeah, until your VC round runs out, and then you need some money, and then my data gets sold somewhere else. We're happy to use systems that record all the time in exchange for convenience. That's also quite fun. I had this friend of mine, also a big blogger, and he's like, I hate that when I get out of a restaurant and Google asks me immediately, what did you think of that restaurant? It's creepy that it knows where I am, and it's creepy that it's asking me for that. And I'm like, how did you find that restaurant? Well, I looked on Google Maps and it had good reviews. And you're like, you know, like you cannot just like have the convenience and not give something back. And often people don't realize just how dangerous it can be in the wrong hands. As I said, if I make up a story around your data about you and you have to defend yourself of it. All that works in large amounts only. We create a massive amount of information actively and without our knowledge, and it's tough to make that amount for information consumable again. And this is why we have computers. Computers to me are a tool. I have the same respect for a computer that I have for a shovel. I use a shovel to dig a hole. I use a computer to do boring, repetitive tasks I don't want to do as a human. They love doing the same things over and over again. We get sick if we do the same things over and over again. So with cloud computing and on-demand processing and advances in hardware, we're faster than ever in these things. But the problem is when we use other people's computers, we leave invisible marks. We use other people's infrastructure and we leave traces. And these companies can then recognize us and accumulate usage history. This is of course good because in essence it leads to better results. I mean, before I joined Microsoft, I haven't used Bing much. I used to work in Yahoo and wrote a lot of the software that is in there. So Google results are much better for me because I've been using Google for 10 years and they know what I want. Whereas like other services just need to get to know me. But on the other hand, we should have transparency about that. What digital legacy we have behind? What do these machines know of us? What these services have with our information? Just yesterday there was a release that there's a purchases website on Google that basically if you do google.com/purchases, it shows you all the things that, all the receipts that you got in your Gmail. So it shows you your shopping history of the last few months without realizing it. That's kind of interesting to see. So the question is, are machines friend or foe? Do we have like a Terminator in our hands, or do we have like a Johnny Five or like some happy computer friend that helps us out? And this is where artificial intelligence myths come in. AI can't replace a human creative thinker. It can replace a repetitive, boring human that is supposed to be a robot because they get a paycheck. And that's not what we should be. It cannot magically fill gaps with perfect information. It can only assume and compare. Like the whole thing like, oh, it will fill the gaps if we don't have some information. That's a dangerous assumption. Because it doesn't learn in creative fashion. It makes assumptions. It makes no assumptions like a human does. It does comparisons and gives the thing in that is most likely the thing that fits in. And it has no morals and ethics, but used wrongly, it can amplify our biases. So badly trained data sets will result in racist interfaces or in disadvantaging interfaces and these kind of things. That's when you realize facial recognition not recognizing people of color. Or when Panasonic had this camera, or wherever it was, that said like every time it took a picture of an Asian person, it said like, did that person close his eyes? Because they didn't test it on different eye shapes than Westerners. So machines can be great tools or they can be weapons. And machine learning is all about returning assumptions. Like, is this the right thing? You get a between 1 and 0 or a 100% kind of factor what the computer thinks it should be. We don't get any definite truth from algorithms, we get answers to our questions. And of course AI can answer questions, but it's up to us to ask the good questions. The more open our questions are, the more random the results from the machine will be, and that is a terrible idea to actually use in production. There's a wonderful thing called Inspirobot. You can go to that one, inspirobot.me, and what they did with that one, they gave it, you know, these motivational posters that they have in offices, like teamwork, happiness, like paycheck, these kind of things, and like with these happy sunsets and these kind of things. So they took thousands and thousands of those posters and fed it to a model and said like, come up with inspirational posters themselves, and the results are friggin' hilarious. Before inspiration comes the slaughter. Believe that you're carrying an idea and remember to undress. Living forever is easy if you take up a loan. Remember that you are pissed. I like that it has the mobile phone in that, like, yeah, don't text now. Basing your everyday on science creates loneliness. That almost feels painful, you know, like that almost feels sad. Like you go to a pub and you're like, hey, I'm a Libra, and I'm like, yeah, I've got an astronomy physics degree. It's wonderful. Like, fine that you are. Keep panicking. Try to tell yourself that you are horrible. And the fun thing is when you take computers and you ask them to learn something, this is an algorithm that they taught how to run. And that's what it thought humans look like when they're running. And I love that. I mean, wouldn't it be cool to go through the street and go like that? And probably it's actually better to walk like that, but it's also kind of tiring. And it might actually look terrible, but it's a very, very intelligent algorithm that made the machine basically find a way to survival for that poor creature without falling into bits, and it gave it all kind of obstacles and it had to go up and down. It's fun to see that that's what computers think we are at the moment, and this is what we could remind ourselves. So machines can be great tools or weapons. So untrained and limited data leads to terrible and biased AI results. As I said, when you do something like repeat offenders in prisons in America, they fed it just the data that they had from people who are in prison right now. So they said, like, people of color and Hispanics are more likely to come back to prison because they didn't have enough data on the white people who are in prison as well. So that's the kind of information where it's like, that should not be done by a machine. It's very easy to get either wrong deductions or false positives, and AI is as intelligent as good as the people who apply it. But it helps us in a few ways. There's great things that we can do. Recommendation, prediction, classification, clustering, and generation. These are the things that we're using machine learning for right now. And these are different things that we can use for different use cases. So recommendation means machines plow through lots and lots of data for us. So it says, like, I feel lucky moments. You probably searched for these 50 things. Here is another thing that you might be there. And it's quite amazing when, like, the marketing model works against this. You know, when you go, I just bought a suitcase that has a lifetime warranty, and Amazon asked me, do you want to buy more suitcases? And you're like, no, I don't. You know, like, even bigger things, people buy washing machines, like, you bought one washing machine, do you want 5 more? Like, no, we should be cleverer that way. Okay, why does that not work anymore? Slack, finding people in your organization. If you use Slack, it actually can, you type in the department, you say finance, and it finds people that work in finance that don't necessarily have it as their name, but it records, it analyzes what people have been talking to each other. When they keep talking about finance, they probably know about finance kind of thing. Intelligent inboxes, like Outlook does now as well, and other services do. Automated photo optimization, like, do you want to crop this around that face rather than like having the face somewhere in the middle. And automated tagging and alternative text image may contain. Facebook does that for a while, and Twitter now does it as well. Prediction is, you're doing this, you probably want this as the next thing. So in this case, it's text auto-completion. I mean, I would be dead in my mobile phone if I had to type in every word anymore. It learned from my way of communicating with people. It gives me the next word automatically. And this is so beautiful that we have that right now. Task offerings, like, oh, by the way, you actually just bought this. Do you actually want to have it delivered to your house as well? Or you bought 50 buckets of paint. You're probably terrible at painting your own house. Shall we call a painter for you, kind of thing. Image tooling, adding photos to a collage, like, these are all pictures of dogs. Why don't you want to have them in one folder? Or these were all pictures around a certain event. We make a collage for you. Creating albums, offering similar music and videos, and offering products that match. Classification is sorting things by what humans told you what they are and scale it up. So say, like, that's a dog, that's a hot dog. That's a dog, that's a hot dog. And now here's 10,000 more pictures. Tell me which ones are hot dog. Tell me which are dogs that are just hot. Good example, Google surveys, actually, when you type a question in, it gives you the right format, the right form field that is applicable to that question. So it's like, out of 1 to 5, and it automatically gives you a scale from 1 to 5, rather than having to select it from a pre-box and these kind of things. Detecting faces and asking for more information. That's a person. I know this person already. Do you want me to tag it in all the other photos as well? Finding anomalies in health scans and doing the same for the ones in the system. So, okay, this looks like a cancer. Shall I go through these other 6,000 MRI scans as well? Clustering, find your own patterns and collate them, like give the computer random data and see what they think is similar and then name it afterwards. Photo tagging and ordering again, document analysis, comment filtering and triaging, and video optimization dependent on content. And then you got generation, and that's where you allow the machine to create things. And that's where it gets weird again, where you do like generated art, generated music, these kind of things. I have a friend who's a resident artist at Google in Munich. I mean, what a cool job to have, you know? He's just painting random GAN pictures and lets machines simulate the style of those. Art style matching is what they call that. So you paint a picture and then it makes it look like Van Gogh painted it. Generated articles from fact collection. So most of the sports news and finance news and these kind of things are written by machines these days. You don't need a journalist for that any longer. Synthesized music and filling content with tagged information like grass, houses, brick. I'll show you something like that later. And react to human input, of course. And this is where it gets interesting. Because we need to find our place on the scale between like, oh my God, the computers are crazy and are spying on me, and hey, this is a great experience, but the computer is helping me to be more human and to enter more human things. So facial recognition is one of those things that is a really controversial thing, because I mean, facial recognition is a wonderful, sensible tool for automatically clustering images to find like, here's you and here's you again. Do you want to be in the same picture, in the same folder, and so forth? And when you look at the API from Microsoft, we have those things in there. The face rectangle, like where in the picture the faces are. The pose, like the pitch, the roll, and the yaw. If you're smiling, if you your gender and age, and this is where it already gets creepy. I mean, we did this How Old.net bot where we automatically took five years off not to annoy people. And of course, assuming the gender of somebody is almost impossible in several cases as well. What kind of glasses you're wearing, if it's sunglasses or normal glasses, if you got makeup, your emotion, anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, neutral, sadness, surprise, which also is me in the morning when I open Twitter. I go through all of them in one go. Occlusion, if you have your forehead covered, your eyes covered, or your mouth covered. Facial hair, if you got a mustache, and attributes hair, if your hair is invisible, if you're bald, or if the color of your hair. It doesn't recognize redheads, so I will have to work on that. Then it also finds your face and says like, okay, these other two faces, are they you as well? So shall we just automatically tag you? And this is where in Facebook it gets worrisome as well, because you might get tagged in the foreground of a picture where somebody does something illegal in the background, and you get in the news that way as well. So the automated tagging should always be an opt-in for users. With Uber, we worked on that in America, that you basically can ask your driver to take a selfie, and then it finds out if it's really your driver and not somebody just pretending to be that driver to pick you up. So that was an extra safety measure that they wanted in San Francisco. And then you get these things where you take it too far. I found this startup that actually allows you to recognize a person's ethnicity from a facial recognition. And I'm hard pushed to find any reason that is not racist to do that. Why would you want to know somebody's ethnicity? Okay, sell them products, fine, but from a facial recognition, that's just assuming a lot of things. That's a very terrible thing to do to people. Again, in China, they go even further. They don't do facial recognition, but they do gait recognition as well. The way you move is almost as unique as a fingerprint or as a face. Like, if you don't have any rhythm, you're probably German. These kind of things. But it's a very interesting thing that even when the faces are completely covered and blurred, they can still recognize people that way. Talking about people, anybody knows these people? They don't exist. These are avatars created from thousands and thousands of pictures of celebrities, and there's even a generator for that. So if you actually start with that, you can change the faces according to gender and the facial hair and so on and so forth, and you can generate a lot of avatars that look trustworthy and beautiful because they're already celebrities. And of course, when you do that, you can build phishing interfaces, you can build LinkedIn interfaces, these kind of things that basically say like, oh, I trust this person, she's probably great in helping me with my next job, so I give her all my credit card details kind of thing, rather than like getting a real person and them doing it. Also, when you do facial recognition and you basically are not that an ethical person, you can do some interesting things. There's a thing called Social Mapper. That is you give it a few pictures of somebody, and it automatically finds them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, well, not anymore, Instagram, VKontakte, Weibo, and Duban, and then creates fake interfaces for them to log in. So when Xing or when LinkedIn tells you like, oh, you've been logged out, and shows you your avatar, you probably trust that this is the right form, right? And it does that by just training the model in the background with your faces. And you can do all kind of weird and dangerous things with that one. But let's go a bit to the other side. Let's say like where the computers are our friends and why they're happy. Let's go to the scale where we actually want to love machines and want to do something. If you want people to appreciate AI without giving the data unwillingly, the best way is to stop selling it as magic, but as a tool. We're always like, oh, this system is intelligent and you're too stupid to understand it, so please trust it. We need to make people aware what computers do and how they actually learn from you. We got this AI for good thing. There's probably a few talks about that today, or you can ask me about it. There's great stuff happening in there. And if you think about the human-computer interaction is determined to happen because we're so good with each other and against each other. So in this case, humans are messy and prone to make mistakes. I'm terrible. My house looks awful. Computers make no mistakes other than physical fatigue or mistakes we told them to do. They make, sometimes I have like, oh, that's an error, but it's exactly how it was meant to be because my coding was terrible. Humans forget things and filter them by biases. Computers never forget and they don't judge. They just keep the data. We're bored when we do repetitive tasks and we make more mistakes when we do repetitive tasks, and computers are great at tedious and boring tasks. When we're bored, we make more errors, and computers love repeating things. Minor changes in every iteration, they love doing that. They're really happy doing that. And we have non-optimized communication. We talk in inflection, we talk in sarcasm, we talk in metaphors. Computers don't do that. They have a very highly optimized, non-nuanced communication. So when we put these two together, where the human fallibleness and the computer's organization can work together, we can build some really, really cool things. So we need data, so let's make it joyful for humans to give us some. This is a cool tool from, again, a research thing from Google a few years ago. It's quite old by now. And what it does is you can actually start drawing something, like in this case some glasses, and if you're artistically challenged like I am, then out of a sudden it says like, okay, look up there, these are glasses, click on that one, they're perfect glasses now. And if you put like a handle on there, it recognizes you wanted to paint a bicycle and these kind of things. So how do computers do this? Well, a year before, Google released a game called Quick Draw, which actually made people doodle things and other people tagged them for them. And this is how they trained that model. So instead of like buying it or using Mechanical Turk to make people find this kind of information, they made a game to actually train a tool. And this is exactly what I want us to do as well with everything else. This is also a reCAPTCHA where you get asked to pick things to say that you're not a computer, but it actually trains a computer model in the background to do the things. It used to be only squiggly text, which was from Google Books, where the scanning didn't quite work out. Then it was house numbers for Street View and also for Google Maps. And now it's basically, a lot of it is like, can you detect cars for self-driving cars? Once it says, can you detect humans and Sarah Connor, that we should start thinking about something that's going on. But the more images we have, the more we can teach the computer to do cool things. This is a thing called de-oldify, which takes black and white pictures and colorizes them. This is stuff that I get paid for to do in Photoshop, and that's over. Because this is actually good enough for most of the people out there. This is like when you take the image and you compare it with millions and millions of others and find the right information to colorify it. I don't know if you've seen the thing, They Shall Not Get Old. It's like a movie about a documentation about the First World War. And they took old footage of the First World War and colorized it that way, but also analyzed the lip movement of people and created subtitles and sounds from that. So for the first time, people heard what people said back then, again using deep learning. NVIDIA has a great tool called Fix Image, which is just bizarre because it does things like that. So you got an image here where you can actually start painting things out, and it compares it to the rest of the image and gets rid of the things for you. So that's like the stamp thing that you used to do in Photoshop by hand all the time as well. It gets kind of weird when you do it with faces because you can get rid of all the like eyebrows and these kind of things. But it's actually incredible by how much data we have and how we can compare them with each other. GAN paint is another one that actually then says like, okay, I want to have some tree here, and then you paint it and it finds tree information and fits it into the image, or a sky, and then you can remove the grass as well and turn it into all kind of other things. That's a tool that actually runs on device that you can actually download from that website as well. So our toolkit to make more human interfaces are NLP, natural language processing, computer vision, sentiment analysis, speech conversion analysis, and moderation. So language and writing is probably the first thing we did. Like translation of websites, that's something that Chrome became successful with. That basically was the thing that it did for us. And it's quite funny how translation of websites is a great thing, and also a great thing to get around websites that are filtered by your university, because people just translated them from English to English, so they never went to the website because Google services went to their website for them. So that was quite fun. We move deeper into natural language processing and language detection. So in the past, we just did word-by-word translation, but now we actually look at the whole paragraph and we look at the whole text and find the context and then do the translation. That's why the translation becomes much more readable and much more sensible. And with using these, you can allow for human commands and finding out tasks by analyzing texts. So instead of us, who have been conditioned by computers for years and years to type in passwords or type in sentences that are very like kittens minus red ones, these kind of things, and all the special Google hacks that you can put in there. The new generation of people, and hopefully all the next generation of people, will talk to computers in a human fashion. And there's great examples. How far I am in the capital of Denmark can be done in any map service by now. It recognizes where you are, it recognizes what the capital of Denmark is, and then it shows you how to get there. Instead of you having to type in Denmark, find me, click another 5 buttons and find the distance between the two. Where do I find a good restaurant around here? This is really brutal. I mean, analyzing that sentence is not that hard, but what determines a good restaurant? Is it close by? Does it have good reviews? Is it according to your history of restaurants that you liked and you were looking for? Is it the price range of things that you bought lately? So a lot of things go into that one, but analyze the text itself is not that hard. Show me documents I wrote 5 days ago with more than 600 words. That actually works in Spotlight in OS X and probably in Windows as well. I haven't tried it yet. But it's pretty amazing that we can allow people to talk to computers that way. And that, of course, brings in voice recognition when you start talking to your machine and you have a conversation with your machine, which I still think is kind of cool, but at the same time it doesn't scale. 600 people in an office all talking to their computer is probably not what you want. Computer vision is when text wasn't cool enough, we added images to our media, but the problem is we forget that not everybody can see them. Search engines can't see your images and don't know what the hell is going on there, so your website doesn't get found for these 10,000 pictures of tigers that you uploaded. And blind people, of course, or people with low vision cannot see your images either, so we need alternative text. And this is where machine learning steps up by turning an image into a data set we can work with. And again, we do this by having indexed trillions and trillions of photos and comparing your photo to those and then finding out, okay, it looks like it's 80% fur and 80% fur picture said dog when it had these kind of things and had that. This was the best dog on the planet. Sadly enough, he's not with her anymore. That's our dog. And when you drag him into PowerPoint, you actually get this alternative text on the bottom saying a dog sitting on a sidewalk. Recognize that this is not only saying dog, hair, slobbering, beautiful person kind of thing. It just basically says a dog sitting on a sidewalk. It's a full sentence. So we do the analysis of the image, we find the tags in the image, and then we run it through the NLP generator to generate a human sentence and put that in there as alternative text, which makes much more sense for somebody like a search bot or a person that can't see than just random keywords. There's also these design things. If you drag something into PowerPoint, it actually tells you like, do you want to design it like that? And you can see that it actually centered it on the nose of the dog and all these designs. So it made it aesthetically pleasing for people who don't know how to do these kind of things. There's also a bot on Twitter. I always forget his name, and I love that you can actually go on Twitter and say like Vision API, tell me what that is, and it says it's Ed Sheeran standing in a room with a confidence of 86.74%, and that's using that API in the background. The API itself has more things as well, so it recognizes if it's an adult image, if it's a racy image, if it's black and white, if it's a line drawing, if it's got people in it, if it's all kind of cool things in there. You also can, OCR scanning is an old trick that came from fax machines that basically turns things into text, so that's something that is available in this API as well. Handwritten notes turned into something readable. That's great for me because I can't read my handwriting. I have no idea what I wrote down 2 days later, so technically I should be a doctor. But this actually works quite well, and of course that works on the digital whiteboards as well if you have more money than I have. Vision analysis of celebrities and landmarks. So this one now found out that you're in Rome probably because an amphitheater, and it recognizes Satya Nadella. It doesn't recognize me yet, so it's obviously broken. But this is of course cool because you don't want to type in again that's a picture of the Eiffel Tower or the Quadriga in Berlin, because computers know that it should be that thing already. Why I got that slide twice is beyond me, but fine. Sentiment analysis, that's a very interesting thing, because when you, for example, have 5,000 comments a day, you want to answer those who are most unhappy first, because they're the ones that don't stop sending you more and more comments because they're pissed off. So you actually find out the analysis of the sentiments to find out which one to answer first, and then the happy ones you can answer later, and you also can send coupons to and these kind of things. So human sentiment analysis works in text quite well. Also faces, of course, facial recognition and sentiment analysis works well. So we do it on video. Audio is a tricky thing because you can sound really, really excited and you're really, really sarcastic. So you don't really know if people really mean what they're saying in this case. But finding out a sentiment can help a lot of things. You can navigate videos or by only showing the happy parts, or you can actually delete videos that are only full of gruesome and unhappy parts. You can detect which comment should be answered first, and you can predict when drivers of cars get tired. So that's a lot of things that we do. The biggest problem about self-driving cars is an insurance problem. Because if the person falls asleep and the car causes an accident, who's to blame? The car manufacturer. No car manufacturer wants to be in that. So we have to keep the drivers awake, although they're actually driving in a self-driving car. So we find out if your facial expression goes like droopy, and then we, I don't know, spray you with water or whatever they want to do. It's like something they will do in the future. Speech is, of course, a big thing as well. Audio interfaces are all the rage. It's so cool to talk to my computer. You can allow hands-free control of devices. You can have always-on system to help you without having to interface with it. And that has such a natural and massive sci-fi feeling to it when it works. You know, it's like the Star Trek in 1993 when I was a kid. Well, not a kid anymore, but I felt like a kid still. And it said like, hello computer. And in computer, yeah, how can I help you? And you're like, this is cool. You know, that machine's just there for me all the time. And then you see like Iron Man, and he does this like banter and sarcastic remarks from his computer back to his computer. And you're like, why would I have a computer that insults me? But fine, if you're that, what you do. I mean, in HTML5, there's an API that always cracks me up. That is called can play through in the video element. So if you have a video and you can actually call the API and say like, I've got a video element with the MIME type of MP4 H264 and can play through, you send that to it and you should get an information back if the browser or the current device can play that video and if it's been loaded enough that it can play it through. Now the API by definition, and that is amazing, in the W3C standard has 3 return values: empty string, probably, or maybe. Why this API is in there and why you would ever use it is fascinating to me. I don't want to have an API that's maybe. Like, why did I call you? This was a waste of my time, kind of thing. And that's the same when the voice recognition doesn't work. When the voice recognition asks you 3 times, did you mean, did you mean, did you mean? The error handling in voice interfaces is much more important than the success one. So we got that speech recognition thing where you can record yourself and you can do a text-to-speech thing and then basically find out what's going on there with your information. You can then use Lewis or other APIs to turn it into commands and turning on the lights in your house, for example, and give it different ways of creating it. And by the way, those subtitles that are running down there and hopefully did random things all the time I was talking, these are built into PowerPoint now. You can just turn them on every time you create PowerPoint that uses that API, that voice to text API. Then of course the other way around, you can do text to speech, so you can type in text and get it read out to you by a certain voice. That's an API. That's also built into the Edge browser, that actually you can highlight any text and read it out to you with different wonderful Microsoft voices and not just hello, I'm your robot, I hate you kind of things. And it also does highlighting of the text for people with dyslexia, or does like pauses, like proper human pauses after every full stop and semicolon. So that's really nicely done as well. If you want to know more about it, there's a great article by a friend of mine called The Rise of the Intelligent Conversational UI, like how to write one of those things that allows you to do your things in the browser. You also have speaker recognition, like famous people, but also you can get yourself recognized as a speaker. So that way you can actually navigate a video by who spoke when on a panel, for example, and the Azure services do that automatically for you. You can also make yourself recognized as a speaker that way. Moderation is a big thing, of course. Some things are just not meant to be consumed by people. Some things are just so horrible that nobody should get paid to look at these things all day long to remove them from YouTube or Bing searches or these kind of things. And that's why computers don't need counseling once they saw them, but humans do. So that's why it's good that if we are recognized illegal and terrible content, it can be automatically removed. So there is a data set of child pornography that automatically has been hashed off the images, and if one of these images show up, this API will automatically get rid of it for you, and nobody has to actually report it once again. And I think that's a very important thing. This, of course, is always like who watches the Watchmen? When is a moderation moderated, or when is a picture nudity, when is a picture offensive, in which cultural environment is a picture offensive, and in another one it isn't. But there are things that just shouldn't be on the web, and it's totally fine if a computer looks at them for me instead of me. So with great power comes great responsibility, to make it like really bizarre again. So our responsibilities. AI can be an amazing help for humans. It can really, really help your interfaces, your services, and also you as a user. You can get better by using machine learning AI-powered interfaces. But it does need transparency. If you use people as a data source, they need to know what and where it goes. It needs transparency, not like, oh, it's free. We just give us all your information and your firstborn and a pint of blood, and then you can look at pictures of kittens kind of thing. That's not how we should deal with people anymore. When people get an information filtered by an algorithm, it should be an opt-in. I hated it with Twitter. Like, I follow people on Twitter for years and years that I know, and I like the information from those people. I curated that for myself. And then out of a sudden, like, you really want to know about Kanye West, right? No, I really don't. I have no idea and don't care. But it's like, that's where the people paid money to show up on your Twitter stream. People need to have a chance to dispute when an algorithm found them and disallowed them access. So this kind of things, like when you get blocked from Twitter because you said something against a certain president, then you actually would have to say, like, actually, I didn't say anything, I just had a real point here. If you want to go deep, there's a Microsoft course, actually, a university course that you can do online that gives you university points. However that works, I've never been to university. But I love that the second part of it, after the math behind machine learning, is the ethics of AI, and not just like, here's machine learning. This is really, really a course that was built on top of those principles. I wrote a course on Skillshare as well. If you want to just go a bit deeper into that one, that's free as well if you want to try it. But we really should think all the time about these things. Who controls the data and who benefits from the data? With all this, we need to make clear that who has your data and where it goes. And wouldn't it be great if we could do more on our devices? Our devices are powerful. And of course the cloud is more powerful, but why should I have to talk to some random server that I don't know who controls it all the time to do analysis of what I have? Or why can't I have a pre-trained model on my device away from the cloud, away from latency to servers? So it has much lower latency, better security, and increased privacy if we run things on device. And right now this is only possible in native environments, like iOS does a lot of stuff, Android does a lot of stuff, but I want to change that. So there's a W3C proposal to bring accelerated machine learning to the web in JavaScript. So that one would be a layer on top of WinML or AndroidML or Metal or whatever other platforms you have in there. And it's a W3C discussion group. If you're interested in that kind of work, it's under that URL, and it's again in the points and the links that I will send out later. I think with everything is don't forget to have fun. Play with a few of those things. This is a colleague of mine, Suze Hinton, who used OpenCV, just a facial recognition, to recognize her emotions and then put emoji on top of her face. And that's all running on device, that's all running in JavaScript without any API calls, and it's just a simple thing to do. Some of you have been around the web like I have, may remember that one, pointerpointer.com. There was a website, if you actually pointed your mouse pointer somewhere and kept it, then it loaded a picture where somebody pointed to that thing. Like it kept just moving around, and it was like a flash thing, it was kind of things. And nowadays we could do even better than that. This is a thing, again by Google, that if you do dance moves, it finds images that are according to your dance moves. Again, using TensorFlow on device to find out what your motion is right now and what's going on there. This is a great example by Cassie Evans in England. I love that bit. She just does facial recognition as a switch. So she did this little guy that's dancing, and he's actually shy. So if you look at him, he stops dancing. And if you then look away again, then he dances again. And again, that's a few lines of JavaScript, just detecting the face and seeing if you're actually looking at it. Charlie Gerard, who's just been actually in Germany, but now she's going back to Australia where she lives, uses TensorFlow to build a prototype where you can control a keyboard with your face. So what that one does is like she just basically does the learning of the simple now, saying this is my head to the right, this is my head to the left, this is my head forward, and this is my head neutral. And it takes like these things, and then she can now take that keyboard and control it just by moving her head around. Again, using TensorFlow.js on device, pretty simply. GitHub is you can find the code and play with it yourself. And I love that people are not afraid of using these things in different and creative ways. This is Linda Liukas. She's from Finland, but has now a residency in New York. And she's doing HelloRuby.com, which is computer books for kids. Especially there's this girl Ruby, which is like a new modern Pippi Longstocking. She just basically wants to be a programmer and wants to know how everything works. So there's books about how computers work, how the internet works. And now she's currently working on a machine learning book as well that has beautiful illustrations and a very simple way to explain to people some of the things that I talked at the beginning of this talk. So if you want to support something on Kickstarter or just want to have some very, very simple introduction to that, that's a great way of starting. And that's kind of everything I had, so I hope you never stop being weird. Thank you.